Soccer Universe. Spurs did it. They end their trophy drought and raised the Europa League, thus salvaging a really bad season, whereas United had the worst Premier League season ever and probably one of the worst in their history. But, it would have been the same way if it was the other way around. So, it is what it is. The final was ugly. Spurs won it ugly. And I'm saying this also with some respect. I know this sounds not good, but I'm saying it with respect, with all my love for all things Italian, although I do prefer a nicer play. But this was very un-Spurs-like. They dug in and they are Europa League winners. And now they can actually celebrate something. And I have to say, it really felt well, Heung-min Son lifting the trophy. That actually filled me with happiness. He stuck with this club in his 10th season, although he was not a major part player. He raised the trophy. Spurs' game plan was more or less similar to what Crystal Palace did. However, Crystal Palace scored a good goal against Manchester City in the FA Cup final, whereas the winning goal also, it fit the final to a T. And we're still not sure. UEFA gave it to Brennan Johnson, but I think it was an own goal. But I think they didn't want to give it as an own goal because, it touched Luke Shaw's arm. And that is probably contentious in itself. It also completes a weird English year of the birds. I mean, if you have a bird as a club icon, you probably won a trophy this year in England. We had Liverpool with the Liver Bird, we had Newcastle winning the League Cup, who are of course the Magpies, we had Crystal Palace, the Eagles winning it, and now Spurs with the Rooster also winning. So a year of the birds. But I would say let's review whatever there was to review from this almost worst of finals, although I can think of a few that have been worse in history. That is also certain. The Europa League final in Bilbao may have had great atmosphere, however, it was not a great game. From the get-go, it really looked like this is the 16th best versus the 17th best team playing each other, but at least there was high energy in the first half. However, whenever there were chances, it felt like no attacker could really connect with the ball and the defenders just got it out to come back again. There was a short period for United like that, there was a short period for Spurs like that. The best chance in the first half definitely fell to Amad Diallo, who probably was the most dangerous United player, I would argue, who had a shot from a very acute angle just go past the post. Vicario would not have gotten in there. Vicario through the entirety of the match feeling rather nervous. It was actually unlikely that the goal came. I mean, United had more, pressed more, played more, and Spurs, yes, with all the creativity lacking due to injury, were more or less there to hit on the counter-attack, although at least in the first half they tried to keep the game open. The winning goal in the first half came then from one of those rare Spurs attack where Sarr puts in a cross from the far left where Brennan Johnson gets his foot on, however then it goes via the arm of Luke Shaw into the net where Johnson potentially maybe just about touched it. I actually don't think it was. It was a goal that was very befitting that game. An ugly goal to win that game. And in the second half, Spurs barely ever crossed the halfway line. They sat in, defended and said, United, please come our way and break us down. And given that Postecoglou has been so dogmatic about his approach, this was really weird. This is the Spurs that we have seen in Frankfurt and also in Bodø. But United did have the chances. One of the biggest ones came in the 68th minute when a deep ball is very poorly cleared by Vicario, who gets it through his hand onto his head, and then it falls on Højlund, and Van de Ven has to make a save with a bicycle kick on the goal line, save of the season, I would say, to keep Spurs in the lead. But Spurs then even brought on more defenders like Kevin Danso and so on, and kept it really tight on the back. There were a few chances. I mean, one by Garnacho where Vicario actually makes a good save. United were then relying on crosses in, but I always felt that Spurs had the head on there to get it out, but they barely ever managed to cross the line. There were a few counterattacks where I thought maybe there's something happening. One where Son, who had then come on, he didn't start the game. You could see his speed is lacking at the moment, and I think there was also one where Solanke poorly plays into a last pass. However, this was also well defended, but really not much coming from Spurs. In stoppage time, a long stoppage time, because all the shithousery that Spurs pulled out, Spurs really trying to break the rhythm of United over and over and over again. But they had one last chance. And Luke Shaw could have made good on his sort of own goal by heading it from a short distance onto goal in the 97th minute. However, Vicario saves it quite expertly. And Spurs win and their trophy drought. And Heung-min Son raises the trophy to the sky to the delight of all Spurs fans. During the trophy ceremony, they ran out of medals. That I've never seen before. I guess there were too many Spurs staff members that actually grabbed the medal itself. I think this should have been a little bit more rehearsed of who can actually receive a medal or not. But yeah, it's Spurs. They haven't won too many trophies. And the last time they won a European trophy was also a very, very long time ago. And I guess for the Champions League final ceremony, yeah, they didn't really care all that much. There was also a funny moment, Kulusevski, who couldn't step on the podium with the crutches. Although, why couldn't he? I mean, so many players have been with crutches on the podium, and then kind of slapping the UEFA vice president with that one. What was that all about? I really didn't quite get that. Well, the vice president was really upset with that for a while, so kind of took a little bit off the mood there. But then also, I mean, Heung-min Son lifting it, and I've said it multiple times already in this video, this felt so good because he stuck it out. But then he has the trophy and he walks towards the podium to raise it, but all the players cannot even wait to stand in front of the podium. It was not even a proper trophy lift. I mean, he barely made it to the center line. That was also weird. Shows you they were just so excited to win this trophy. Huge credit to Postmortem of calling it that he wins a trophy in the second year of every club that he has been. And yes, he threw all his eggs in that Europa League basket. That much is for certain as well. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I also liked Son, who was so much in tears, and you know, he couldn't believe it. He also gave then on German TV an interview in almost impeccable German. You know, some of the articles were maybe wrong, but really speaking well and almost as good as he did English. That actually really impressed me. Spurs with this win are now on 3 Europa League / UEFA Cup titles. They won it twice. Yes, I said it wrong. They won one in the 80s. They also won one in the 70s. And now they have a third one. And I think that draws them level with Inter, who are second in that ranking. Of course, Sevilla with 7. Way above everybody else. But it's quite remarkable, and maybe this just gives Spurs some winning mentality back. I don't really have much to say about United, except that yes, they were the more active team in that final. They also went into the final a whole lot more relaxed, it felt, and maybe in the end it was, you know, Ange's job. I don't want to say it was on the line because it would be stupid to fire a coach just because you win a trophy or not. But, you know, look at United last season. But, you know, Ange had really put everything in the Europa League basket, whereas Ruben Amorim knew that he's going to be back in the summer. So whether he wins it or not is probably not so bad. And probably secretly, it's not so bad for United to miss out on Europe altogether. Yes, all the money that you're missing out is probably not good, and the financial troubles are well documented, although it's also quite controversial. But I feel that with having only one game to play per week, and yes, there's other cup competitions as well, this actually might be a blessing in disguise for United to actually build something. But Amorim has to be backed, and I think a whole lot of United players are not fit to the glory or that this club usually represents. I want to end it with a short recap of the entire Europa League season. That's why I put out all the jerseys of the quarter finalists as well. I have to say, up until the semi-final, I really love this competition. This was the European competition. There was excitement. The league phase was so level, had plenty of upsets, plenty of great games in there. The playoff phase was great. The quarterfinal was exhilarating most of the time, especially that United against Lyon game that will live on in memory forever. But there were others in there. I mean, how can I forget to mention Bodø Glimt running all the way to the semi-finals, playing north of the Arctic Circle and on a plastic pitch to boot. However, they really romped through, and yes, Spurs were then just a step too far, but also suspensions didn't really help them. That it wasn't the final that we all wished for, yeah, that is also true. But in the end, you know, it's the Premier League teams. They're on a different level of physicality to most of the teams that were in this competition. And I really have to hand it again to Spurs to not play dogmatically, just going forward with their high pressing style, but to really grind out results starting from the quarterfinal. The way they disposed of Eintracht Frankfurt was very impressive. Bodo Glimt also, in a way, I mean, they dominated Bodo Glimt, a Glimt team that really had put their opponents to the sword, especially up in Norway. So yeah, this is huge credit to Spurs. United also, I mean, their never say die attitude, it didn't show really in the final, although in the end it did. They just couldn't get the ball over the line. And I would argue if United get the equalizer, they win in overtime. There's also no doubt in my mind about that. But, you know, these are the qualities that actually saw them through. And yes, they have so much more financial might behind them that it carried them through. I think the Europa League season, as exciting as it was for most of the time, suffered a little bit to not have teams from the Champions League coming in. And I really hate saying that, but yes, the Europa League was a devalued competition once the Champions League expanded. And it was in a way salvaged and made more interesting with teams from the Champions League coming in. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. And so, yeah, it kind of makes it competition a little bit meh, and having Spurs and United in the final, again, two teams that were so low in the Premier League. And yes, both teams probably in the second half of the season threw everything into the Europa League basket, and maybe we should not discount that. So they said, you know, the league really doesn't matter much, and especially for Spurs, you could see that. But still, it shows that the competition is not that hard for them. In any case, please let me know your thoughts on the final. Are you a Spurs fan and celebrating? How do you feel if you're a United fan? Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these. And I will talk to you soon with more things in my soccer universe. Bye. Hey there. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye.